an organization which automates the process flow of how an expense is claimed in an organization. We also do corporate travel and a bunch of other um, products around these two. But the core product is around travel and expense, so the T&E industry. What we will be doing today is to kind of take a look at how can we be effective when we are working from home or working remotely. So just to kick things off, um, I would like you to kind of use the Zoom chat feature and let us know what industry are you working in. You don't have to be very, very specific, just a broad brush stroke at a high level. If somebody is from FMCG, you can just type in FMCG. If somebody is from BFSI, banking, insurance industry, type that. If somebody is from ITES industry, then just type that. The idea of getting this information from you is to understand what kind of group we have today and try to make the rest of the content as relevant as possible to where you come from and how you can use some of these tips. So I see Pran has shared something. He's from IT industry. So thanks for that, Pran. To rest of the attendees, if you can quickly, professional services, okay. Okay, a couple of more to come. Oh, brilliant. Social sector. Very nice. Thank you for sharing this. I think we also had one person drop. Maybe they will be able to join in. We have a couple of others also joining in. So if you've just joined in the session, a very warm welcome. Please use the chat feature to put in what industry do you work in. The idea is to kind of really make the talk relevant to where you come from. So please share the industry that you work for at a very high level: banking, insurance, IT, and something like that. We've got a few inputs so far. We've got IT, professional services, educators are here. We have a fellow teacher at Teach for India Social Sector. We have IT again, education again. So I'm glad we have a fairly diverse group. So we are also around 4 or 5 minutes into the session. So I'll get it started. And to kick things off, I'd like to kind of hear from you that working remotely or working from home, uh, what do you think? And in your opinion, just quickly in 2, 3 words, maybe a short sentence, type in Zoom and let us know uh, what is your thought on the current Indian corporate culture. Do you think work from home um, is something which is widely accepted or encouraged? And you know, the timeline of this question is, of course, pre-coronavirus or pre-lockdown. We are talking about, let's say, until the December of 2019, right? Do you think in all the industries where we work from home is something which is encouraged highly? Feel free to type your answers in Zoom. Your answers really make the base of what we are going to talk in the rest of the session today. I can tell you that I come from the ITES industry, and work from home is something which is not very, very widely accepted here, right? And as a next step, you know, you want to kind of think through why Why is working remote discouraged in India, right? I think Nisha mentioned it's obviously not encouraged highly. Spot on, Nisha, right? And everybody else who's thinking on the same line, you're right. Uh, but if you think through why, right, and of course, before you go to why, you might end up thinking that a lot of my colleagues in different countries, they work from home permanently, right? They have a little home office, and they work from there completely. So why is it not encouraged in India, right? Um, we have got another feedback in education, as I felt that working from home is not highly appreciated. Absolutely spot on, right? And that's the what we heard from the two feedbacks so far is that it is not appreciated across industries in India, right? Also in the industry where I come from, it is not highly appreciated. In fact, it was discouraged to a long time, right? So uh, the reason as to why is because uh, Indian professional managers or people who we work for, we dearly call as our bosses, right? They are always most likely in front of us, right? They are used to an organization. Let's just call it an organization. An organization is very, very attuned to seeing us, being in front of us, and working with us in person, right? So when we are not in front of somebody, it becomes really difficult for a lot of things. A, to keep a track of where the person is. Uh, why have I not received a response on something? Why are we keeping a customer waiting, right? How long this report will take? When will the content for a class be published? When will it reach me for a review, right? These kind of things. Another big factor, and of course applicable to me as well, was that work from home's definition for me from an employee standpoint was not work from home, but also work from dining table, work from sofa, or work from bed, right? And all of us have done it. All of our teams have done it. All of our friends have done it, right? Now, when you are working from home or from a remote location and you do not have a, a proper office or a proper setup that makes you feel as focused as you are in an office, it of course impacts your productivity, what your output is, and the quality of that output, right? So let's spend a minute on how we can look at improving things when we are working from home, right? Because in the current situation, it is critical, right? Industries are slowing down. The entire economy, not for only our country, but globally, is already cracking and showing the signs of recession. So, a recession in a lot of times results to issues like job losses, pay cuts, cost cutting in different organizations. And whenever those things happen, it is of prime importance for every person, every professional to protect their own earning, their own work. And the best way of doing it is to give the best output for your organization. And while you're working from home, what are the two, three tips that can help everybody organize yourself and stay on top of the pile through this tough time? That's the objective of looking at some things that we are going to talk about today, right? So I'm not going to give you a really, really long list, like, do these 20 things to stay on top of stuff. But, I'm going to talk about two, three high level things that I have practiced and mastered. And I have time tested these techniques within different teams that I work with. And they have always produced great results. So first of all is the readiness, and feel free to take notes. And in the middle, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those questions in the Zoom chat also. Uh, so first of all is readiness, right? So we have to be mentally prepared that yes, uh, we have to work from home, right? So focus is really important, right? How focus and readiness change things is, now imagine a scenario, right? And I know I invite you to, do this kind of a comparison in your thought. You are in your office at your workplace, right? There is a time for everything. You reach office on time, you go to your tea break on time, you go to your lunch break on time, right? You have your time for meetings, and you have time for remaining work of the day, right? But things are not very organized when you're working from home, right? So it is very important that you have to be mentally prepared to ensure that you are ready to be able to put as much time into work when you're working from home. When you are ready and focused for that, you can do a lot of other things. So first point is readiness. The second point that I want to talk about that is it is very important to have a dedicated space where you work from, right? What are the salient features of this dedicated space, right? There should be no or minimal disturbance, right? The reason is that if you're getting disturbed again and again, you will not be able to focus a lot of time, right? So the dedicated space should have no or minimal disturbance. This dedicated space should be well lit. It should not be dark, right? There are some psychological and scientific impacts of working in a dark space versus working in a very well lit space, right? Instead of going into the science of that, I just say that you will feel much better working in a nicely lit place as compared to a dark location. um, a lot of times, for those who work um, with remote teams, you will find yourself getting on video calls, right? And having a location where you are visible in good light is very important. So have a dedicated space without disturbance that is well lit. Um, Make sure this place is next to your Wi-Fi or your internet where you have a good connection, because a lot of us, specifically from IT organizations, might have to get onto a VPN connection, a secured connection, right? Staying away from a router will, keep tripping your connection. Your connection might be slow, and many other IT issues like that. So make sure you have a good connectivity from wherever you are sitting. Um, So overall, have a dedicated space which is well lit. You are nicely visible. You can focus. It does not have disturbance, and it is next to your good Wi-Fi connection so that you can connect without any disturbance. The second is that um, try to compare your work in your daily work in the office versus how you're working from home. So the idea for an organization is, right, as a manager, what do I check when I look at my teams working from home? I look at the productivity, the quality of what they are producing, and I compare it. How was it when they were in office versus how is it when they are working from home, right? And in an ideal scenario, I am not really expecting a drop in neither the productivity nor the quality of what they are producing, right? So you have to make sure that your work is done in the right way, right? And to my previous point, having that dedicated space is going to help you a lot, right? Uh, in a lot of scenarios, you working from not a dedicated space, which is like an office or a table, working from a different place or a place that keeps changing, will not allow you to focus and will impact your productivity and the quality of what you produce. Right? So these are the first 2 points. I also want to talk about a little bit of learning opportunity. When we are working in an office environment, there is kind of an 80-20 relationship between our work and what we want to learn, right? It's a win and win situation both for the organization and both as an employee for us also, right? All of us have goals, all of us have ambition. We see ourselves growing in our lives, and I have a very simple model of um, growth which I'd like to share with you, right? The first thing about growth is you want to understand uh, where do you want to be, right? So imagine you are at a point A in your life and you would like to reach point B, right? Um, Point A requires a skill set, and so does point B, right? Now, if you write down the skill set of these two things, just arrive at the delta of these two things, right? So I'm currently at A, and this requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skill sets, right? And I need to be at point B, which requires, let's say, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So I already have 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the ones that I need to prepare for, right? So all you need to do is plot a timeline quarter by quarter, or month by month, depending on what skill set you're picking, and work on those skill set items. In this example, point number 6 and 7, which are present in the skill set B and not present in skill set A, right? And include them in your learning, in your daily learning, right? If it is, it could be something related to your domain knowledge. It could be something related to your hard skills or soft skills. It could be something related to something as simple as meditation, right? Which makes me better in my life holistically, right? So when you're working from home, the best way to be effective is to always keep sure that you keep a little bit of learning time. Now, all of us have really, really busy days in life, right? At work, where we don't have, let's say, um, not more than 10, 15 minutes of free time every day, right? If that is a scenario, try to take out time on a weekly basis. That every week I'd like to dedicate 2 hours towards my own learning, right? What have I learned this week, right? As and when we keep on doing that, our knowledge improves and our overall portfolio keeps on improving. The last point, the fourth point I'd like to talk about today is to have a schedule, right? It is the most important thing that keeps things together for me and everybody in my team. We are very heavily schedule driven group, and I think it helps keep things in a very, very organized way, right? Um, the What tool I use to keep myself organized is a calendar, which is in my Outlook. Uh, Most of our phones are equipped with a calendar also. So people who do not use Outlook calendar can go to your mobile phone application called Calendar. You can save things there. If you're planning a day for tomorrow, you can plan an entire day for tomorrow, right? You can actually put on items saying that you have to do something, and the phone will actually remind you at that time to do something, right? For corporates, it's fairly simple. It's all integrated into whatever email tool or the CRM tool that you use, Lotus, Outlook, or whatever it is. The calendar, helps you take care of the entire schedule. To an extent that the learnings that I talked about, we have even those learnings timed in and scheduled in your calendar also, so that you never miss them and you make time for them, right? A lot of times when you have scheduled learning appointments in your calendar, you can plan a rest of your day around that, right? Which means you will not miss anything else in your day, and you will not miss your learning appointments also, right? So these are the top four things that have really helped me stay on top of the game, along with my entire team during this time. Um, at this time, I would like to ask you guys to, ask any questions if you have. You can feel free to put these questions in the Zoom chat. And while the questions are being typed, Ayur, if you're there, how are we doing on time?
Hey Piyush, I think we have 20 more minutes, so we can take like 5 6 questions from them.
Okay. Any questions from you, Ayur, to get things started? Okay, we have a question, and it's one of my favorites. How to defeat procrastination. So, how to um, kind of win over uh, the feeling of, okay, I will do this later, right? Um, and I think the best thing that has worked for me, despite trying many tricks, I think my favorite is to kind of really focus down to the schedule or the calendar, right? And I will take the liberty of sharing something with you guys. It's something personal, but I think in help answering the question, I'll probably do this. I can share my screen and show you guys, and some of you have to kind of tell me if you can see my screen. You have the microphone, so maybe you wanna share if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, cool. Um, okay, guys, look at my calendar, right? Um, this is my Outlook calendar. We use Outlook, and like I said, this is personal. Uh, this is how I manage myself, right? And look at Tuesdays, Wednesday evenings, and look at Thursdays. They're very heavy, right? But also look at a lot of things like there's a daily meditation task that is there, right? And I have calendared it. It's something very personal. It has nothing to do with my office. But what happens is that when I put it in my schedule, right? This allows me to sync my calendar to my phone, right? A lot of us are in an age where we always have our phones in our hand, right? So when this time comes, my phone actually reminds me that this is the time for me to meditate. This is the time for me to work out. This is the time for me to take my pill. This is the time for me to make that report, right? And this always and always keeps you on point, right? um, a lot of times I have felt that okay, I'm going to forget, so let me write it. Now I write it on a piece of paper and pen, and I forget to check that paper again, right? Which will make me forget a lot of things. But when I put things in calendar, it will uh, it will actually remind you at the time that you choose to. So I think the best way that I have been able to win over procrastination is to make sure that we always stick to calendar, and it helps us true to our task and what we have to do, and keeps us ahead of the entire schedule. So I hope I have answered your question in how to defeat procrastination. Um, all right, we have another question, and I will read it out for everybody's benefit. What I have seen in the past 2 weeks is that people are working for whole day and night, and now they have shifted working till late night, which will cause problems once they're back to office. How will we really? Oh, that's a brilliant question, and I found myself in this trouble as well. So, a lot of companies, industries, and professionals uh, did not experience this, or this was their first time, right? Like if you're a first time manager who are setting up a work from home unit for all your employees, right? It will take some time and effort. It will take a lot of thinking. It will take a lot of reviews, right? So I think it is okay if for the first 10 days you have literally worked 16 to 20 hours a day, right? But if you continue to do that today, yes, it will lead you into a non-healthy state, and at the end of the day or week, make you unhealthy, unproductive, even sick. So as things settle down, as you feel that you and your teams have actually settled down into um, your work from home, that you're comfortable, you have that dedicated space, you have your mental peace, you have great connection, you are able to get your most of the work done, you need to confine yourself into a schedule, right? And it will sound like a broken record, but yes, scheduling and using a calendar is a great tool to schedule. In your Outlook, you can actually define time which will be something like your working hours, right? So if you bring Outlook down to working hours, uh, nobody will be able to put a meeting with you outside of those working hours. It will actually show that you are not working, which will help you kind of cram a lot of things into your working hours, right? I think that's a good way of utilizing the tool and keeping the entire productivity during those 8 to 10 working hours only. I hope that that answered the question. I noticed that some people have dropped off the call, but I hope overall the question is answered. Great questions so far. Thank you. We have a question written in the Q&A section over and above from chat. I'm going to just read it for everybody. Being in IT, I feel that sometimes I forget some technologies which I'm not currently working on. Um, so, any idea on how to overcome it? Uh, Great question. I think to kind of keep up to date on all technologies uh, might be a Herculean task, so to speak. It is, the state of technology in today's world is that, if we don't kind of keep a check on, the new technology every day, we might be obsolete in a week or something like that. So I think it's a mountainous task to keep abreast of everything in terms of technology. What we can do is that you wanna focus on some of the areas, right? So areas that some of them are your sweet spot. You are always curious about it. You like talking or thinking about it. You like watching programs or reading about it, right? Pick up some of those areas, integrate those into your learning plan, right? Understand how much time you can devote to them, understanding about them on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. While most of us end up working remotely, maybe it kind of increases your flexibility for learning a little bit. Maybe it decreases your flexibility. So the best way you can do is to plan about it on a advanced basis. And once you do, you stick to that plan, you understand where you want to go with that skill set, right? It is very, very important to be clear about what is the objective of this learning, right? You want to, if you need to pick a technology to master it, to make a career out of it, then that's a totally different requirement. If you want to gain knowledge on something just to casually have a conversation with colleagues about it, then it's a totally different thing, right? So you have to kind of bake it in your learning plan accordingly, and dedicate time to it, and keep it true to your schedule. We have another question in the chat section. It goes like, we do plan our daily activity and share it on tool. Uh, and for the observation, I have seen it works okay. But then sometimes people are blocked due to other activities. How do we solve this issue? Uh, I I think the last portion of your question is not clear. But then sometimes people are blocked due to other. You mean other meetings, other activities, and how do we solve this? If that is your question, well, um, in my about 20 to 25 years of work experience, I have seen the professional culture change, from one end of the spectrum to another end of spectrum. When we started our first jobs, the professional culture was that we never ask or question anything that is being told to us, at any kind of workplace. Today, the work culture is absolutely quite the opposite of that. We are in a very, very highly collaborative and partnership driven culture, right? So if there is an activity that involves um, work done collaboratively, let's say the person A is working on a project that requires person B and C to be part of it, and this needs to be delivered based on a timeline. Let's say tomorrow, right? So you set up a meeting for, let's say, 2 p.m. today with person B and C, and you see that both of them are kind of working on something else. Their calendar is not free, right? And that can, kind of make you miss the timeline on tomorrow's delivery. So, you can't force people into the meeting, right? But what you can actually do is write to people. Maybe they are not aware about your timeline, or how them not coming into this meeting with you affects the overall scheme of things, overall project. And a lot of times I've seen that when we collaborate and we share that we really need people and this is a business need, for us to urgently speak with them on this project, or for this meeting within today at this time, a lot of people kind of really make space in their schedule and accommodate the request. Of course, it depends on how critical the business request is at your end, versus how critical the business request is at their end. A lot of times, they might be working on something which has a higher priority than what you are working on, right? So those kind of, barring those kind of exceptional scenarios, I think a lot of times you will see that based on a collaborative approach, you will be able to block time with different team members and stakeholders, and get into a meeting where you can share inputs on the uh, project in question. So looks like I did I understand your question correctly? People are blocked and working on some task due to some other people. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great. I'm gonna check the Q&A tab one more time to see if there's anything else there. Okay, that was the only one question. All right. Any other questions? Okay. If there are no more questions, I will hand it over to Ayush. Oh, we have a question. How to track productivity? Super question. You can never go wrong with a question like how to track productivity. Um, I think, given the context of remote work, it is very difficult to track productivity, right? And just to put things in context, right? Tracking of productivity has had its own evolution, right? uh, Remember in the old call center times, you have to actually sign into a phone, a hard phone. You log in into a phone with your ID and your password, and then you're logged in, right? You're available on calls, you're on a call, you're on a hold, you're talking to a customer, and all that. At the end of the day, the productivity report that comes out, which shows your phone time divided by the overall 8 to 9 hours of the shift, and that's your productivity, right? Um, for a lot of other industries, or for a lot of remote people, uh, it is very difficult to track productivity, right? Uh, Especially in a scenario where people have newly found out that yes, they can work from home now, and that there are no other way for organizations but to let your employees work from home, right? So the best way to kind of really track productivity is to not track the hours, but to actually track the value that's being generated, or the amount of work that is being done, excuse me, that is being done by the people, right? Now, you might be in a company where you are, let's say, into an IT function or a professional services function. So you're working on a customer requirement, right? So you actually have to kind of really understand, do a research about the customer, and kind of really submit what is the best pitch or proposal we make based on the research of the professional services group, to kind of really pitch a service or a product to a customer, right? Now, of course, you're working on a timeline, right? So you can't really put the pressure of hours on people, saying that you want to do this in 1 hour or 2 hours, right? But you want to get to a stage where you are like, okay, so we are looking at uh, putting a pitch out or a proposal out to, let's say, two customers within this week, right? So as a manager of the professional services team, you are expected to come up with two proposals, or share the results of your research based on something like this. If you're in IT, your team is doing development or testing, right? And like I said earlier, you have data and reports, or in your mind that your teams have overall in a week been producing something like this. So if they do, let's say, uh, 1,000 calls in a week, right? They're working from home. How much are they doing? Are they doing 500? Are they doing 750? Are they doing 1,200? Right? And that's your productivity, right? You can actually track. This is something which is easily trackable person to person as well. But yes, it will be difficult for you if you track hour by hour, but you will have a bigger and much more easily understandable data point if you look at it from week over week as compared to hour over hour productivity. uh, the kind of work environment that I come from, where my team does tech support, so we resolve technical issues. And I also look at my team's productivity on a daily basis. But when we got into a work from home environment, we started looking at things week over week, or month over month. We've kind of looked at how many tickets the teams have done in, let's say, December, January, and how many they did in February, and how's the status coming up for March, right? And then have a discussion with those teams, right? So I think that's a better way of tracking productivity. You will always not be able to rely on tools for productivity. A lot of these tools are dependent on people logging into a particular system, and numbers are only a post facto analysis, right? Of doing it. So you can also, for a lot of organizations that have progressed or evolved towards behavioral goals, you can also look at the behavior. And when you look at, let's say, hi John, your productivity for last week was 140 tickets, and this week you've done about 87 tickets, right? So let's talk about it, John, right? What is the reason for this drop in productivity, and how can I help you, kind of conversation. Now, this conversation is not a productivity based conversation. This conversation is based on a behavior, right? When you talk to the tune of the fact that, okay, in last 2 hours you've done 4 cases, in previous 2 hours you had done 27 cases, right? That's a productivity driven conversation. You're talking about hours. But when you talk about the trend of days over days, hours over hours, week over week, that becomes a behavior, right? Somebody's gotten into a behavior. A behavioral conversation has far more psychological advantage in a professional context than a productivity or hour based conversation. So try to focus on things from a behavioral standpoint, um, and look at data from a week to week or a month to month standpoint, rather than hour to hour, and you will be able to have a better understanding of how your productivity has panned out. Yes, the question in the Q&A section, we have talked about it already.
And I think we are good. We anyway are like we have to stop at 12:45. So
Yeah.
it's good. Like thank you so much for taking time on a working day. and helping these cases.
Sure thing. My pleasure. I'm glad
Yeah.
I could help.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Piyush.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for attending the webinar.